Good morning, everyone. So thank you very much for investing the time with us today. So I'm Yolanda Sanz from GSMA, and I'm working with the eSIM industry to make eSIM real and be able to have the such nice panel session that we have today, called Enabling the Age of the Zero-Touch Provisioning. But before that, please allow me to introduce the panelists that we have. So Niklas, you want to explain what you are doing, particularly in the context of the eSIM and IoT, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Yolanda. Good morning. My name is Niklas Ekarv. I'm responsible for the IoT Connectivity business unit at KORE. A little bit about myself. I kicked off a long time ago at Ericsson with network management. And interestingly, then 20 years or so ago, I joined a company called Wireless Maingate, which was one of the pioneers in the IoT industry, essentially filling the gap between what customers needed for IoT and what the carriers were able to provide at that time. Incidentally, KORE was founded at essentially the same time as well. And then I moved on. I was one of the co-founders of Vodafone's global IoT business. I worked there for 12 years, and I'm really happy to be at KORE in this position now for a year and a half.
Daniel, you want to introduce yourself, what you are doing in the context of IoT?
Yeah, great to see everybody today. Big shout out to KORE, and thank you very much for inviting us onto the panel today. So for those of you who have perhaps not come across MultiTech, we enable connected products and services. Many of the brands, the companies that you use every day, good examples actually in this convention center, that hand sanitizer brand, the one that you all know, you put your hand underneath, the chemical comes out. We built 6 million of those last year and scaled those globally across the world. We're also inside a lot of medical products like defibrillators, so that perhaps in an ambulance, by the time a patient gets into the ER room, his personal info about that cardiac event is in the hands of his doctor. We put sensors into more or less every fridge freezer now that you're going into retail stores and quick serve restaurants to make sure that there's food compliance and safety in what we consume and eat. And my role in MultiTech is to focus on those emerging markets. I lead our strategic development function, where I focus in on key verticals. I collaborate with great partners like KORE in order to accelerate digital transformation.
Thank you very much, Niklas and Daniel. I think we can take a seat and let's get started the panel. So based on the presentation that Romil has made, it's really true that the cellular IoT is growing exponentially, and if not, what is holding back IoT deployments at scale?
Well, I think, the IoT market is growing at around 15 to 20% per year, depending on which analyst house you believe in or so. It's true that probably the technology hype in IoT is subsiding a little bit, but IoT is here. It's a mainstream technology that is used as a part of all companies, I'd say, digital transformation. Interestingly, I think there was a figure released yesterday where it said that more than 30% of the German businesses already use IoT as a part of their daily operation, the way they run their business. What is, however, true is probably the simplest type and the largest volume IoT applications and devices. Here you need to imagine battery-powered sensors, temperature sensors, very simple gadgets that are used in the millions and deployed across fields and agriculture and so on. That promise we probably haven't seen yet. That's still held back a little bit by cost and complexity. Some of the things we'll talk more about later on. And when we solve those problems, then we will see even more exponential growth in the IoT business.
Okay, so this seems to be a great news for the IoT ecosystem. So Daniel, what do you think? What is holding back IoT deployments at the scale?
Well, first I'd like to say we're all enjoying IoT on a somewhat minute-to-minute basis, so it's very much there. It's scaling, and of course we want it to be faster. We're not happy with a 20% CAGR growth every year. By the way, most businesses would die for a 20% CAGR growth. So it's definitely happening, and it's happening in millions. But of course, there's so many different objects that are stranded, that are not connected, that could enable us to reduce our carbon emissions, be more sustainable, be able to be more efficient in our day-to-day life. And frankly, we can't blame the technology anymore. You know, the networks are there. We have 5G, wireless communication. We have all the standards that a person could ever want to have. So the technology is there. Now it's about making this simple for consumption and being able to scale it without having to have a developer in your backpack, you know, pull them out to have to install everything.
So based on what you just said, Daniel, if all of these millions and billions of devices, we will require easy of provisioning, do you think we are ready for that?
Yeah, I think we are ready for that. You know, I often look at IoT as 3 big circles. One circle is those IT guys. They're the guys whose job it is to create secure networks, to be able to onboard assets, be able to manage them. We have the OT circle. Those guys are the guys that actually install the equipment and consume the operational data coming off of it. And then we have the telco segment, this show here today, Mobile World Congress. And the 3 of us, these 3 disciplines, are scaling out IoT. And I think what we're seeing now is as we move into the next era of digital transformation and the next level of scalability, that it's only a telecoms network that can create that scale. And I think we're now well into resolving that friction between how IT and OT has traditionally consumed and scaled technology.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for the clear explanation. Niklas, what do you think? We are really ready for
I
these
think
million devices connected?
we're well down the path, I would say. I mean, the SIM card was a great invention 30 years ago when it allowed the subscriptions to be ported from one device to another. It really solved a great problem for consumers at that time. In IoT, of course, and Rommel made a strong point of it, is it isn't useful in that form where we need to provision and re-provision devices potentially anywhere in the supply chain or during the lifetime of the devices. And of course, we're all seeing that the traditional role of provisioning IoT devices with the SIM card is well on its way away, so I would say absolutely we're prepared. I mean, the SIM has other important functions, especially in the security area where we need to take care of securing devices, not provisioning them to the communication network, but provisioning them to the cloud, and that's the next step.
So based on what you say, it seems that we are overcoming the main IoT challenge that we have, but do you think you have created hyper scalability of IoT, leverage cellular connectivity and security? Maybe, Nicholas, you can answer that.
Yes, when it comes to hyperscalability, it leads into the hyperscalers themselves. So when we look at the customers that come to us and want to launch IoT projects, we see that more than 80% of them already build the analytics part, their application, in the cloud with some of the cloud provider services, right? So at KORE, of course, when you onboard with us, you are automatically onboarded to your cloud provider through the pre-integrated connection points that we have with all of them. So at that level, the setup of the projects are made extremely easy. Now, when it then comes to onboarding of individual devices, that's where the SIM then comes back into play. And here, KORE offers OmniSIM Safe, which is based on the IoT Safe initiative from the GSMA, where you take that one step further and use the SIM card to carry the credentials that are used then to authenticate individual devices to the application instances in the cloud. So that is a really powerful mechanism that takes a lot of the headache out of building hyperscale IoT deployments toward the cloud.
Thank you very much. Daniel, do you think we have created this hyperscalability on IoT deployments, leveraging cellular connectivity and security?
So organizations want to be able to quickly and scale their devices. And I think what Niklas is saying there is that SIM card was really used for subscriber management, but it's a secure enclave. It can be put into many different types of devices that are older maybe, devices that perhaps don't have the latest forms of security, TPM2 platforms and so on, quantum security. And so that SIM card in itself offers IoT companies a secure enclave, a root of trust. And what KORE's been doing here with OmniSafe is they've done a very tight integration into AWS. And I referred to that next scale of transformation. That is the hyperscalability, this next stage. And it's all about getting data from physical world into cloud platforms. So with that tight integration with KORE and AWS, now your AWS account has a copy of a shared key, which is also in that SIM card. And that's very powerful, right? Because that's an out-of-band communication of those keys into two very secure enclaves. Enabling the device, MultiTech conduit gateway in this case, to connect lots of different sensors into that gateway in a very trusted fashion, be able to leverage that shared key to be able to create a VPN TLS connection directly into AWS, to be able to authenticate that gateway into the AWS platform, and be able to pull down certificates, profiles, and configuration data. The gateway is then configured based on those keys and profiles to then ingest data in high volume, securely, in a way in which malicious actors can't decrypt that data, can't hack that data. And all of this is happening without a single truck roll out to the site in order to be able to configure that equipment. If we look at the business, these last few years, we have to send lots of engineers out to configure equipment, which is creating a huge amount of emissions, wasting time. And if we're going to hit hyperscalability, there aren't enough engineers and there aren't enough hours in a day to do this. So now IT are able to allocate the devices that they want onboarded, and this now automatically happens at scale securely.
Thank you very much. That was the last question for the panel. I don't know, Nicholas, if you want just to send a message to the audience, considering that it seems we are ready for the IoT connections.
Well, the message
comment.
to the audience is we are ready. Please talk to us about the projects. Please push ahead with IoT. The business, IoT, as I said, is a key ingredient to the digital transformation. It's already becoming one of the major enablers to drive digital transformation, the shift from product to service business models, and we are ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd also like to highlight that for many of you out there who look at that SIM card as being very proprietary to the cellular industry, well, look at it more like a secure enclave. There have been a number of announcements at the show this week about how that SIM data moves off of physical SIM cards and eSIMs and moves into the microprocessor and the compute design. That's how IT works today. They use secure enclaves, trusted execution environments in microprocessors to securely authenticate and transfer certificates and settings. And so that whole eSIM profile, I think in the years to come, is going to run in those standard microprocessor architectures. And so there's plenty of scale here today, and I think we're definitely up for the challenge here to hit the hyperscalability.
Thank you very much, Niklas and Daniel, for this amazing panel.